Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA. Let's talk about what has happened to the stock, what we can expect moving forward, and all of that good stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., well, I do share my thoughts with my members every single day the market is open as the market is trading. Link is down below in the description of the video. For just $3 a month, you get access to my thoughts, post updates, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks as well that I share. Today I actually talked about GameStop, believe it or not. But nonetheless, that's there for $3 a month, or $5 upgrades you to the second tier, which includes everything in the first tier, plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day up about 0.86% on the day, closing at $118.50 per share, which compared to the market is, of course, going to be a nice little potential, small outperformance, right? Not too bad at all, but ultimately doing a whole lot of nothing. So tomorrow is OPEX, right? A lot of options expiring, like I think almost 4 trillion of options or something very high. Expiring tomorrow, right? OPEX. So we can get some weird price action intraday. NVIDIA's max pain tomorrow is actually sitting at NVIDIA max pain. NVIDIA max pain tomorrow is sitting at, I believe, 120. Yeah, 120. That could change to 117 or 117 and a half potentially, but 117 to 120 we'll say is the max pain. What does that mean? Well, that means that ideally the market makers, if they really want to be greedy, they'll pretty much pin price action somewhere around 117 and a half to 120 range, somewhere around right here. That would be the most pain, essentially. That's where the most options expire, essentially worthless, right? So that's going to be something to watch for tomorrow, but that's more of just that's another view, if you will, of potential technical analysis, if you will. The other perspective is actually looking at the chart itself. What is the chart telling us? Well, the chart is pretty much still, I still view NVIDIA as pretty bullish, right? It actually opened up pretty weak today. I mentioned 116, right? I'm like, don't be surprised if it opens at 116. I missed the dip. I'm really disappointed, but nonetheless, it opened pretty much at 116 and a half, pretty close to what I said. Didn't quite come to the bottom of this, pennant once again, this bullish pennant, but nonetheless, pretty damn close. And then it instantly got bought up within the first 10 minutes of the day, which is obviously a good sign. Came out to the upside. You can see a nice little rejection here, and we're still getting tighter. Worst case, there is still a chance it comes back down to the lower end once again at about 117. That is a potential, right? Right now, I'm just sitting in a 117 cash you could put until that expires tomorrow, as I pretty much await for it to figure out where it truly wants to go. I still lean bullish, of course, but I'm waiting to see an actual confirmed breakout. Now, if NVIDIA starts getting above 119 and change, we'll say, and starts closing 1 hour candles above 119 to 120, we'll say, to make it easier. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think that's looking like a nice little potential breakout setting up. And I think NVIDIA is going to be looking ready to rock into next week. That'll be kind of the way I'll be eyeballing it moving forward. So that's the main way I'm looking at it. I still lean bullish. I do actually still lean bullish on NVIDIA. I still like the fact that it's holding my, kind of 117. Remember the level I've been talking for quite some time, a little bit of a resistance here, support here, some resistance here. Now we're back to support, right? We're constantly flip-flopping this 117 region, but the idea is the fact that we're back to holding it, which is good. But more importantly than that is the momentum is still bullish, because on the 1 hour time frame, you can see the EMAs are still cross all bullish, right? You have the 9 above the 21, but more importantly, the 8 above the 21, but more importantly, the 8 and the 21 EMA, which is the green and red lines, are both above the 50. That to me is pretty crucial. And essentially, the way I look at it, as long as both of them are still above the 50, I still lean bullish. Now, if they start crossing back down below, if NVIDIA starts losing pretty much 116, okay, not as bullish anymore, I'll be honest, right? And we're starting to get some signs of concern here. Okay, it's not looking as good anymore, right? But we're not there, right? And as it stands right now, I still view this wedge setting up right here as a bullish wedge. Pretty simple stuff, right? It was a nice impulsive move to the upside, very nice, very aggressive, very quick. I like to see these kind of things. Nice consolidation on slightly decreasing volume. You can see, right, the volume has been slowly decreasing. This is pretty textbook. You really just can't make this up. This is the more I look at it, the more I just want to go buy shares right now, straight up. It just looks very, very textbook. Now, I'm going to be a little bit safer just in case, because in a market like this, you never know. But yeah, it's pretty classic. I'm not gonna lie. This is a pretty standard looking bullish wedge. Yeah, there's no other way to put it. It looks pretty good to me, as long as we essentially break 119 to 120 and also continue holding above about 116 and a half, something like that, right? As long as those criteria are met, it's looking pretty good. So the daily is looking, the 1 hour is looking pretty solid. No real complaints. And I think that honestly, if we get a break out of this bullish wedge, wouldn't surprise me to see NVIDIA on the daily. Take a look over here. At the very least, to come up to the 50 EMA on the daily, which is currently sitting at around 125. But honestly, really wouldn't fully shock me to pass it and get back up to closer to 130. That honestly wouldn't shock me if that were to happen. Honestly, even next week, right? That's kind of my main target if we do break out of this bullish wedge. High 120s, we'll say high 120s, maybe low 130s if we're lucky, and that's kind of our main target initially. That will pretty much bring it back up to the top of this downward channel that it is still in. Let's not forget that it is still in a downward channel. But if NVIDIA breaks out of this downward channel, it can make a pattern that looks something like this, and that would be extremely bullish, right? That would be very bullish. Now, we're not there yet. There's still a lot of work to do before we potentially get something like that going. But hey, it's something maybe worth discussing, especially if this actual bullish wedge plays out the way I expect it to. So let's see how this plays out. Let's see how this actually moves forward into NVIDIA, from here on out. The good news also is one indicator I like to look for stocks to bottom as well is 1 hour divergences. It's something new I started doing. Usually people look for divergences on the daily, which is great. But if you only trade off of daily divergences, you're going to be waiting like months before you find any entries, right? Because those take a while, especially on the basic settings of the RSI. However, if you use the basic settings of the RSI at 14, but go to the 1 hour time frame or 65-minute time frame instead, you'll get a lot more interesting signals. For instance, you can see while NVIDIA was selling off very aggressively, we started getting a nice bullish divergence on the RSI, and then look at this, it ended up finally finding the bottom as these divergences really started to kick in. So one thing I'll be looking at for NVIDIA to give me some signals that it's topping, especially if we get this rally. More importantly, if we get this rally, if we break out of this wedge and we do make our way higher, which again I expect it to, the way I'll be looking for topping signals is, well, obviously we have the typical resistances like the 50 EMA around 126, the channel resistance closer to 130, but even more so than that, to add more confluences together, would be a bearish divergence on the RSI. So just as an example, let's say, this is what it can look like. The NVIDIA breaks out, comes up like this, gets a rejection, makes its way up. And let's say it makes its way up to, 128 here, gets another small rejection like this, and then finally makes its way up to, let's say 130. Right? But let's say the RSI kind of goes like this, does its, thing, makes its way up like this on this massive move up to 128 as an example. And then, we make that next push up higher to, 130, but the RSI looks like this, right? And that would be a very obvious bearish divergence where the price made a higher high while the RSI in this case would make a lower high, right? And that's kind of what I also look for when it comes to finding bottoms or tops essentially in stocks essentially, right? That plus, the EMAs, let's say they cross back to bearish, like those kind of signs is what I'm going to be looking for on NVIDIA once this rally that I believe is coming. Fingers crossed, you never know with this market, but I believe is coming on NVIDIA, and we'll observe it. Again, my members will always know it pretty much as I see it. Obviously, I'll update it on the video as well, but naturally it's going to be late at times. But nonetheless, that's kind of what I'll be looking for, something along those lines for NVIDIA moving forward on this potential rally that's, in my opinion, getting ready to ignite. So let's see how this plays out. Let's see how OPEX gets treated. Tomorrow should be, a pretty wild intraday movement price action day, probably, most likely, but don't be surprised if the market ultimately doesn't actually go too crazy anywhere. That is a possibility too. I think that's about it. The daily, let's take a look at the daily. The daily is, getting rejected by the 21 EMA, but it's not really showing me signs. It's arguably an inside day. It's not showing too many signs right now, I'll be completely honest. So yeah, you can make an argument. It is an inside day though. So if anything, that's another reason why breaking pretty much 120 is pretty crucial. But again, another reason also why this compression should lead to a pretty nice expansion, in my opinion, to the upside if we break above 120 or very high 119s at least. Weekly, take a look at the weekly. Tomorrow's the last day of the week. We're still holding above the 50 EMA, which is great. If we somehow can close tomorrow above last week's high, which is about 122, if we close tomorrow above 122, oh man, that will even further solidify the fact that I think NVIDIA is most likely coming up to, at the very least, the high 120s, maybe 130. But that would even potentially make me start thinking that, what? A lot of people are bearish right now in the market, rightfully so. Don't get me wrong, the market's still kind of sketch, no questions asked whatsoever. There is definitely the market could definitely look better than this. There is some work to do, no questions. However, looking strictly at NVIDIA stock, if we can close tomorrow above 122, that would tell me that this bullish piercing candle that we did print on last week's candle relative to the week before that's candle, right? These two candles right here, that would give it more validity, and that could potentially spark further bullish pressure to the upside. And that would start making me wonder, hey, you know what? Maybe this is finally that rally that we get to break out of this downward channel that has been haunting the stock pretty much since January, right? Beginning of the year, more or less. But yeah, that's just thinking ahead. We're not there yet. There's still a lot of work to do. The market still looks, you know, a little flimsy here, right? You know, it's not looking too bad, but you know, it could look better. You know, it definitely could look a little bit more convincing than this. So let's see how that actually plays out ultimately. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing on NVIDIA. So let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.